My name's Chris Bussing. Welcome to the channel. This is where you come to start and grow your tech sales career and create a life of freedom and impact. We've got a great guest today, Joseph Smith, who broke into tech sales and is now crushing his quota at his current company, Frisia, and also has a YouTube channel and podcast, Tech Niche Tips, which I encourage you to check out. It's a great podcast. In part one of the conversation, we're going to talk about breaking into tech sales. In part two, we're going to talk about how to crush your quota as an SDR. If you get value out of the video, of course, like the video, share it with more people who could benefit from the message, subscribe to the channel, and check out Tech Niche Tips as well. It is a great pod. All right, Joseph, thank you for being here. How has your Friday been so far?
Thank you, first of all, for having me. It has been December, Q4. So if you are in tech sales, you can know how cold it can feel at times, but it has been good. I can't complain. Hopefully you're having a great time as well.
It's been good. And I started my career in Oracle as an SDR, and we used to talk about Q4 magic. Hey, you there, Joseph? I love it. I love it. This is why I like to do lives, because we have fun, spontaneous, crazy moments. There was one time my camera didn't work for the whole freaking live stream, and I was a black screen. So, at Oracle, we talked about Q4 magic because customers were conditioned to know that Q4 was the best time to buy from Oracle. So, wishing you and everyone out there some Q4 magic. I made a proposal today. It was a meaty deal, multi-million-dollar deal. We'll see what happens. So thanks for asking. I wanted to dig into a little bit of your backstory as we talk about your journey into tech sales. Now, your name is Joseph Smith, which sounds like such an all-American name, and yet you have two immigrant parents that came to this country. And I'm curious to hear the backstory of your parents and what you learned from them, and then we can evolve into eventually connecting the dots of how you got into tech sales. So start with your parents and their backstory.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like that camera fell, just it's the same way we go through tech sales. We're going to have moments where we have to fall, and how do we bounce back is the name of the game. And so for me, just wanted to make sure that, can you hear me well?
I can hear you perfectly. I was just rocking my fist because sales is about being the man or woman in the arena, and it's going to get messy. So this is just a metaphor for that. Keep going.
Oh yeah. Life is messy, and so is sales. And so that's the way I like to look at it. But specifically regarding my parents, they both migrated here to America, specifically New York, from a country called Guyana. Now, it's very popular right now in the news because oil was discovered there recently, and ExxonMobil's out there, and they even have a dispute with Venezuela in regards to that specific piece of portion of land that was years ago said to be Guyana's portion of land. But that's neither here nor there. I want to get too political. All I would say, that's if you're trying to figure out where Guyana is, it's in South America. Every time I tell people Guyana, they're like, oh yeah, Ghana. I'm like, no, this is Guyana in South America specifically. But they came over as immigrants to the United States for, like most people, having a better life. And so when they decided to do that, they decided to basically go ahead and leave everything that they have, and just to kind of speed up their stories, because it's a very interesting one. They had families, they got together, and then they had me as a little baby. I was the last of 6. And what happened was, when I was 14 years old, my mother, who just came back from a trip from Haiti, working with children and other missionaries, she was basically informed by my cousin that there were lots and lots of street children living in Guyana at that particular time. And that was unknown because of the fact that there were so many different people that would take care of each other. It was a culture of community. And so to find out that that was lost was something that really troubled her. And so this might sound weird to a lot of people, but she decided to leave everything that she knew. She gave up her house, gave up a brand new job that my dad had, gave up her business, a brand new car, put it all aside. And as a family, when I was 14 years old, we moved out there. And we basically lived there. I lived there for about 3 years, and I came back for school. But they are still doing that 18 years strong, where they basically have gone down there and given their lives to basically this mission of helping people, helping children who are in terrible situations. I won't get into details because it's really horrible, but in terrible situations, and really providing what's called a sanctuary for them. That's why they named the home a sanctuary there in Guyana. So if you want to support, definitely hit me up on LinkedIn for you businesses that are looking to take care of your taxes. You know what I mean? In regards to philanthropy work, reach out to me as well. They do a great work, and they're still doing it nice and strong out there.
That's very inspiring. And I imagine that your parents instilled in you a heart of service, and that has carried over into how you operate with your clients, and then also how you lift others up onto this tech sales path. And you're doing a great job of that. So, yeah, what are some of the core values that I'm kind of jumping the gun, putting words in your mouth, but is service one of those core values? Maybe faith? Like, what are the values that have driven your success and your contribution?
Yeah, I think innately one of the values that I've had is always trying to lift, as you said, uplift others. And it came as a form of even being on the courtyard as a kid. You might see somebody who might be new. What I would normally do is strike up a conversation with them as a child and say, "Oh, you like Superman?" And then I survey the playground, and I know somebody with a Superman shirt or a Superman lunchbox. Like, I know Freddie. Come on, let's talk. And then and then we have this conversation where I'm connecting somebody new to somebody that they may not have known of before. And then that is where they kind of develop a relationship. And the same thing is true with sales. It's like, hey, I have this solution that may be a really good fit for you. Let's have a conversation about it to see whether or not this works. And that's the way I kind of approach it. But I also approach it on a human level. I know we kind of mixing different topics here, but I also approach it on a human level to make sure that it is you have things going on in your life, right? We speak to VPs, we speak to people that are huge in their companies, but they're human beings first. And I think that having that touch is what made me successful in regards to sales. But to kind of backtrack and go back to values specifically, for me, the main values that I've had was to try to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I try to live that out the best way I can and to pay it forward. So when I was able to find out some things that helped me to get into tech sales, some resources, some tips, some tricks, that's the thing that I'm trying to pass forward with my channel and pass forward with the information that I have, those that I mentor, those that I coach, in passing it forward to them and saying, hey, if I could do it, you could do it as well.
It's very clear that that's your charter, is to help others open up opportunities. And I love what you said about connecting people. That is a key part of being a seller, is to open a door for an executive to talk with your solution architect or business value consultant, bringing in the CEO when needed to create value and offer solutions that actually could get someone promoted in their role. In my world, what if I could help a VP of engineering get promoted to CTO or hit their bonus that they're going to be able to use to take their daughter to Disney World? I don't know, but there's a connector component, there's a contribution component, and that's what I love about this path. And clearly, I notice even looking on your LinkedIn profile, connecting people is something you're all about, and I'm the same way, my man. So any thoughts on that? Do you want to riff on that? Otherwise, I got more questions for you.
Yeah, we could definitely talk about it. By the way, and I'm going to be, if I could be honest and transparent and real on this live, is that cool? Can I do that?
Yeah.
You might catch me muting myself at times because I have a tribe out there. I call them my starting 5 plus a 6 man. We have my wife and I, we have a huge family. So if you hear any background noise, it's me. And I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. But yeah, riffing off of what we're talking about with communicating and connecting people specifically, is I always find it a joy when you could find somebody that might be looking for an opportunity, somebody that might be looking to break into an industry or something like that. And specifically, if I'm in that industry, I kind of find myself naturally being like, hey, let's talk. Let's have this conversation. I would love to see where you're at and see if there's somebody that I know that can really be either a catalyst to get you to where you want to go, or if, just to be a listening ear and really be able to just be present in that moment. And so, yeah, let's definitely talk about it. I would love to hear what tips and tricks do you use, Chris, when you're connecting somebody. For me personally, it's always about who do I know in the room, who do I know online, what tips I could give them, but maybe you could give something specific that could be helpful to someone right now.
Yeah, when I connect with someone, especially for the first time, and maybe through the lens of a networking conversation to earn an interview in tech sales, I think about how can I refresh them with a personal touch. I'll look on your LinkedIn profile and see you're passionate about this and that. You wrote a book, you have a corgi that you love, and I'll just show that thoughtfulness and make an effort to connect personally. You don't want to force it, like, some things like, oh, you have a mom, I have a mom too. Wow. Or you like food. But like, if you could find something that shows some thoughtfulness, that's huge. And I am a chatterbox for sure, but if I could set that aside and listen more and how ask great questions about the individual's roadmap to success and path. One, by quick note, by asking someone about their roadmap to success, that implies they're successful and it's subtly like complimenting them.
Yeah.
And people love to talk about that. And so
Uh-huh.
there's a CEO that's a mentor to me that always said, just flat out ask about people's path to success. So whether it's a mentorship or networking conversation, that's something I do a lot. And ultimately, I could go on and on, but coming through a lens of how can I contribute? And so I see that you have this awesome podcast and YouTube channel. Maybe I could,
Thank you.
Just make it clear that I'm going to continue to evangelize your work, and I shared your content with other people.
Yeah.
That's one way for me to give to you and you to give to me. So you can do your detective work to see, like, how could I give to this person, even in a small way? If anything, you can give acknowledgement and appreciation. And also, this is subtle, but I actually think this is a gift. You can give someone the opportunity to contribute to you. And once someone gives you advice, if you can, after the fact, like, apply it and be successful, you can celebrate that win with them, which is also a gift because they get to be recognized. Like, I helped them be successful. So anyways, and you could flat out ask at the end of a conversation, like, you could ask, like, how could, this might sound funny, but I want this to be a two-way street and you're helping me get my foot in the door here, but is there anything I could do for you? So those are just, stream of consciousness on how I think. I nerd out on those things.
I love it because it really is a two-way street. It really is basically seeing how can we be mutually beneficial. How can we be mutually beneficial to one another and provide value, which is a part of sales. Oftentimes I think, and this is just to the general audience, when it comes to sales, it kind of got a bad rap over the years because it always was at the point of, well, somebody definitely is going to lose in this transaction, and it's not going to be me. That was what people think of when they're coming into this. But one thing I love about being in tech sales is that the goal is to be as mutually beneficial as possible to both the company that you're working for and also the potential prospect. And so I really like that about this industry, is like, hey, we're really trying to help. It's not just about making a quick buck.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, like, it's important to be honest with executives on metrics, and I used to say this at Google Cloud, believe it or not, like, Mr. CTO, Miss CTO, my metric for success is delivering revenue for the company. It's obvious, but the only way I'm going to do that is if I'm helping you hit your metrics and reach your goals. So I'm curious, like, what are your top priorities? How are you measured? I was, like, very direct, and it's like, we're not going to sell anything unless we're actually providing value and solving a problem and helping someone succeed. And so you hit it on the nail, man. You're exactly right. It's think win-win. And when we help enough people get what they want, we happen to, as a consequence, get what we want. So, hey, I wanted to ask you about how you found out about tech sales and what drew you to it. And then we'll dive into the nitty gritty of, like, resume, LinkedIn, interviewing, all that stuff to get a job and go from there. But what drew you to the opportunity?
Yeah. So before this, I was working in solar sales, and honestly, I'm thankful for that position because it was really grinding it out. Like, we were on the phones, and I'm not kidding when I say 200 dials a day, probably more.
Wow.
Automatic dialer, managers on hoverboards running around, dial, real Wolf of Wall Street environment, if you want to imagine that. Music blaring. Sometimes I'm trying to speak to a potential customer, and they're like, "What did you say?" And I'm like, yes, I'm saying, is that Jay-Z in the background? Yeah, don't worry, it's fine. I think I see we're actually in your neighborhood right now. And so, but it gave you a level of determination. The energy in the room was infectious for sure. And you see people winning on different levels in that environment, but it did give me my chops. It gave me that area of focus where it's like, in the first 5 seconds, can I be able to hear the tonality of this person, either match it, try to bring it up a little bit higher to my energy level, like what I need to do in that first 5 seconds. That's what I learned a lot in that arena. Also learning to close calls, getting next steps. We call them same days, next days. We were not looking to do anything 3 days out or more. So imagine that. Somebody's like, I can't talk right now. I'm going to probably talk to you next week. No worries. I would write down. Somebody write down the block. We could see you today. We could see you tomorrow. So that level of urgency that you have in the call, there was so many little things that I learned. That's why when I see somebody in solar for specifically, I want to reach out to them because I'm like, I get it. And not only do I get it, but you may not realize how many transferable skills you have to bring to the table. That is so, it's way, the value on this on the tech side is it sells a high level. So those that are looking for hiring people that they're trying to figure out what is a good industry to pick from, solar, definitely go to solar, because we get rejected a lot, but we also know how to smile and dial. Anyway, speeding that up, I know I could talk a lot too, Chris. So I'm going to get past that part. But basically, I did everything from the outreach portion, research, everything from qualifying leads to up to sending out reps. I had different territories that I had in Texas and Arizona and things of that nature. So I was doing the job of an SDR without the title of an SDR. And so I'm basically, you know, even though I'm enjoying it, I'm kind of having a moment where I'm talking to my manager. I just got this promotion, and we're kind of talking about, you know, how much we're making and stuff. And I'm like, for all that we do, I feel like we should make it a little bit more in my mind. And this is not to speak anything bad necessarily about the company. Company was great. It kept us employed during the pandemic. I have nothing but great things to say about that company, but it made me realize that I wanted a little bit more. And then I stumbled upon an interview with Cyrus Harbin and Anthony O'Neill where they're talking about tech sales. And what was talked about was specifically being a sales engineer in that conversation. But what was alluded to was this industry of tech sales. And I said, oh, I'm interested in that because I kind of do that stuff already. And then I started when I talk about consume content, I was like up 2-3 o'clock in the morning, just consuming content about tech sales, listening to people that you may see all the time on Trent Dressel is one of them as well, all the time on YouTube, just consuming content of what it is to be an SDR, what it is to be in tech sales, what is an account executive, all these different things. And then I decided to go ahead and take the plunge into CourseCareers. And when I was taking the course, I'm like, oh, now this is giving me language for the things that I'm already doing. Yes. This makes sense. Eureka moments happened all the time during this course. And I was like, this is great. And so I actually went through the program, I would say in about a 30-day period of time. Okay. And if you're cool with me going right into it, I'm going to go right into my story about how I got the job, if that's cool.
Yeah, let's. And the point of this conversation is, one, to inspire and encourage, which we're already doing, and two, to give actionable tips on how to get a job. And so let's talk about your story. I will say I'm going to be with Trent Dressel tonight at a White Elephant party. He's become a good friend. He's in Austin, as well as Tech Sales with Eric, and Trent and they're living in the same building. It's a crazy hub here in Austin. So I'll tell him, shout out to Trent, that Joseph, appreciates what you do. So anyways, dive into it, man. Let's go.
And just to shout out to Trent as well, one of my first interviews on my channel. So shout out to you, Trent. Thank you so much for that opportunity as well. And so we get to this point, right? I basically, and I didn't say this, but the reason why I also was looking to transition careers and make more money is because at that particular time, my wife and I had 5 children. And and we were expecting our 6th. And so I was like, yeah, things are going to have to change around here. And so I ended up making that transition by basically completing the course in 30 days, which I highly recommend to anybody who is interested. No, Chris has a link, so go ahead, click on it. Free introductory course, everything. Shameless plug, right? So I click on the link. I finish the course by, I would say, when I get into that portion of trying to look for jobs, I probably selected 10 jobs, to be honest with you, at first. And for the first 2 or 3 of them, I was just mass applying. And the rejections came as quickly as I sent them out. And so that made me realize that I was not doing this the right way. I needed to go back to the drawing board, and I needed to do it what I call the CourseCareers way, which is simply doing the job to get the job. It's getting kind of cliche, but sometimes things, if it's not baroque, don't fix it, as they said in Beauty and the Beast, right? So that was what I needed to do, and I did that. And the company that I'm with today, they responded to me right away. And that process was a beautiful one. You know, I did a video interview, and then I was scheduled for the phone screening. Let me remind you, though, that my wife was due with our 6th child. And so the day of my phone interview, that my phone screening I was supposed to have, my wife is like, oh, I feel the contractions. They're coming 5 minutes apart. Now, keep in mind, we kind of pros at this point. We had a couple of kids. And so we're like, okay, old routine, get the bag. Let's go. We're taking it very casual, both my wife and myself. My mother is home with our kids. She came from Guyana just to be with her grandkids. She loves them. And then when we passed the threshold of our car. Literally, I'm not exaggerating. My wife screams to the top of her lungs, like almost like there was a crime scene. And I turned to her, like I'm at the door with about to open it up, turning to her, and I'm like, "What's going on?" The contraction got so strong that I was like, "Okay, we gotta go." Mind you, when we get into the car, we're driving to the hospital that we're supposed to be going to. Traffic. It's like 7 o'clock, 7:30 traffic. The traffic is starting to form, and I'm here sweating a little bit. I'm trying to console her, and I'm trying to see if there's a police officer anywhere. None. And it was just like every like 5 minutes or so. You know, and I'm like, breathe. We did this before. We could do this. And she's like, yeah, breathing, and she's sweating in the back seat, and it was crazy in our little minivan. We get to the area where a hospital is in, and if you know New Jersey, it's like the New Brunswick area. And 10 minutes away from the hospital, my wife says, my water broke. I'm like, what? Wait, I don't know why I said it, or why I was thinking this in my head. I don't think I said this out loud, because I think I'm a smarter man than this. But I said in my mind, oh, please hold it. Like she has to go to the bathroom or something. Like, please hold it. That's what I'm thinking in my mind, because I'm like I was like, okay, babe, we're almost there. 3 minutes away, she says my water broke. And at this particular time, you know, I had to pull over to the side because I did not hear the baby make a sound. So I pull over. I move. This is the crazy thing. I pull over to this like huge. It's a huge driveway, but somehow the person behind me couldn't get around me, so they're honking their horn. I'm outside opening the door to see. I won't even describe it to you, but let's say it's a basically a scene out of a horror film. You know, in regards to everything that was there. And I see the baby right there that's caught in between some fabric of her clothes. And I hold that baby in my arms. And I rock it back and forth. Baby makes a sound. The sigh of relief. And then I take that baby and I put it back on mom. Mom, I take the robe that we had, the extra robe that wrapped the baby, get back in the car. Person behind me is still honking their horn. I'm
Oh my
not there.
God.
And I drive, do a U-turn. At this point, I have my hazards on. I'm passing red lights. People look at me crazy. I get to one emergency room. They said, this is the wrong one. You need to go to the other one. I'm like, come on,
no.
This is the same hospital. Get around, go there to the other one. I'm talking about 30 or so doctors, nurses, medical students all around my wife and myself. Funny thing is that one of the nurses came running out with a wheelchair. They came to the door, and the other nurse is like, get a stretcher. And it was like, get a stretcher. And they hit the whole switch around. We get my wife on there. Long story short, baby is okay. Wife is okay. And all the hustle and bustle, I do remember to remind myself to let the recruiter know I can't make it today because the baby's here. But the reason why I tell this story is because of one of the 3 C's that I talk about when we're looking to get into tech sales and actually remain in tech sales is this. So after this moment, I'm tired. I'm sleep deprived. My car's a biohazard. I can't really drive it anymore. I have to get like a special hazmat cleaning crew to come in and clean this. And I killed it in that video interview. That was fine. But then I got to the phone screening, and I'm literally in Enterprise trying to get a new car, tired, worn out. And the grace of this recruiter to say this to me was, I wish every recruiter was like this, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes you may have a bad day and they're like, oh, this is not the candidate we want. But she said these words to me. She said, hey, Joseph, is this the same person that I was speaking to on the video call? Because it doesn't seem like it's the same person. In that moment, it caused something to rise into me where I'm like, yeah, this is Joseph. I'm here. I'm ready to go. And in that moment, I was able to remind myself of this C, which is consistency. Sometimes things are going to happen in your life that are going to cause all your plans to get thrown out of whack. You're going to think that you're going to be able to make that interview. You're going to think that you're going to be able to get your quota. But then whatever reason, they call out sick, they can't make it, and you have to reschedule. And in that particular moment, I had to say, yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. I explained exactly what was going on. They had grace, of course, and we able to go through that process. and go through the next interview process and the next interview process. But I didn't forget from that moment that no matter what you're going through, rise to the occasion, and that consistency is key. Confidence is key. Curiosity is key. And those are the 3 C's that we're going to talk about when I get to my tech sales career. But I wanted to pause there because there's a lot of people that may be going through things even right now. I mean, this is a very difficult time of the year. People have lost loved ones. Some people have gone through terrible times, and this is just the memory of it. The stain of the past is permeated on their clothes, and they look down and they're reminded every time at this time of the year, the pain that they have gone through, and they feel like they cannot move forward. I want to encourage you that no matter what you're going through, remind yourself to rise to the occasion and to consistently kill it. And so I'm going to pause right there. I love telling that story, but
oh, such a good story. You had me on the edge of my seat, and just the emotional roller coaster ride that was. It was a fun one to be on, and I needed to be reminded of
not in that moment though.
You never, whether you're starting in tech sales, trying to get in as an SDR, you're a seasoned account executive, you're a VP, you're a founder of a company, everyone needs to be reminded of the power of consistency, and in spite of whatever's going on, showing up. And I really admire you, man. What a great story, and your heart to just speak into the camera and encourage people. And so I feel it's natural that we go into the other C's. I did want to ask you also about like most impactful aspects of preparing for to get a job, like whether it was your optimizing your assets like LinkedIn and resume, networking, interview best practices, and things like that. I did want to touch on that, but maybe we should start with the rounding out the 3 C's. Where do you want to take it?
Yeah, we definitely could do that, because in my journey, for me getting the job, it was multiple rounds of interviews after that moment. And I came to the conclusion that while I was going through the process, these 3 C's kind of kept coming up. Is one, you want to be curious, right? And as in tech sales, that's the name of the game is, you're curious when you're doing research. You're curious when you're asking these deep questions: spin, situation, problem, implication, need, payoff, right? You're curious when you're asking about, even when it comes to budget, authority, need, timing. Of course, some things make me quote unquote out of date, but it's good to have these things in the back of your pocket. It's good to be curious. It's good to even be curious about the person's day. I had a situation where a prospect, and forgive the background noise, like I said, I have a tribe in the
you're good
room, but there was a time where I had it was actually recently where they couldn't make it. And I know as salespeople, especially in Q4, deadlines are tight. You're just like, man, you can't make it. But I asked them, hey, is everything all right with you? Is everything good? I just want to make sure you're good. Lo and behold, one of their kids had to call out sick and all these different things. And at that moment, instant empathy. Listen, I have a tribe here. I get it. I totally understand. And at that particular moment of being empathetic and just out of curiosity, I was able to find that pain point. I was able to empathize with it. And now the prospect's asking me for dates. And the prospect is RSVPing and making sure that they're there on time and apologizing when they're a little behind on getting on Zoom. So curiosity is deep and can be it's a really essential tool to do the job, right? That is curiosity, consistency, like I mentioned, and that consistency is really kind of undergirded with confidence. Confidence coming from knowing the job, knowing the product that we're selling, understanding the pain points of our clients, doing deep research and understanding what needs they may have, and being confident through practice. I love the quote that Kevin Dorsey has. He said, like, the best practice, the rest practice on prospects. I mean, that's one of my favorite quotes. The best practice, the rest practice on prospects. And so, yeah, go ahead.
It's the same thing. I'm like, it's the same with the interviews, right? It's like, don't wait to the interviews to practice, like practice ahead of time, role play. And by the way, KD, and I haven't met him yet, but we're going to do an in-person sit down in Austin coming up probably in January. We just need to pin down the time. So I love how our 2 worlds are really intersected, and we're just getting started. We'll have more conversations to come, Joseph. So I love to see the synergy, but I love that you are focused on these 3 C's, which are a way of operating and being. And we can choose to be these ways right now. And that really can attract abundance and all the success and that we're looking for, So How did you get inspired with these 3 C's? It sounds like it was just through your experience, right? But was there a moment when it clicked?
Yeah, it was after the interview process. I'm like, oh, that's how I got the job because I was reflecting on that. But it really clicked the most when I was actually doing the job. I went through training. I really appreciate that my company takes about 30 days for training. Like they really try
Yeah.
to walk you through the product. So about 3 weeks before they really kind of walk you through, and then they put you on the floors, right? And in that moment of time, I got to meet my manager. Shout out to Caroline, who's a great manager. She's been a part of this company for a while, and she was able to speak about it. She said, listen, some people are going to come in here, they're going to have an amazing month and exceed quota. And then the next moment they're not going to be there. So you have to be consistent. And so by her kind of reemphasizing that C of consistency, it kind of helped me to like, okay, consistency. What else? How do I be consistent? I have to be confident. I have to be curious. And it kind of got those C's
Yeah.
unraveled. And that's why for the first 9 months, I didn't focus on much of anything else, but how can I consistently hit my targets of hitting quota? For 9 months, I did that. I hit quota, and also exceeded quota in that time period as well before I went on paternity leave. And that's kind of leaning into being successful. And hopefully I'm not going ahead right now, but
No,
that
you're
kind of leads
good.
yeah, that kind of leans into being successful to me as an SDR is those 3 C's. And that's how it got unraveled because when I'm talking to a potential person, let's just say, I won't get too deep in the needs of what we talk about, but let's say they have a particular product already, and what we can do help them with vendor consolidation. I would say, with our services, we can offer everything at a pretty much at a standard package. How much are you paying for that service on a daily basis in regards to the add-on? Because sometimes it's advertised, oh, this is all inclusive. But if they really kind of take the time to evaluate the receipt, they're actually paying for a lot more than they think. And I even got a point where I did ask that to a prospect recently, and they're like, oh, I don't know how much I'm paying for that particular service.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So you're asking questions to guide them down a path that
Yeah.
might lead them to realize for themselves that Joseph and his solution could actually make my life a little better, save me money, deliver better outcomes. So
Yeah.
it's like you're just guiding them on that journey through
Yeah.
questions. And that's a really good way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
and the way go ahead. Sorry.
well, I was just going to go back to, the instilling confidence in the like job hunt, but we can put a pin in that. Finish your thought.
Yeah, I think that was I think we should go back to that for sure, and I could always go back to what I was thinking about because I wanna
Yeah.
make sure that I'm
It's
following
fun,
the
you and
timeline.
I, because we like to dance all over the place and have a good time, and
Yeah.
so many nuggets so far. And your passion, though, is what really stands out to me as well. So,
Mhm.
okay, one of your C's is confidence. People aren't going to buy from you; they're not going to hire you, which I think of as a buying decision, unless you're confident in yourself, and that instills confidence in them. How did you build your confidence going into the interview process? What are some of the key things you did?
So, this might sound weird to say it like this, but I was confident in who I was, right? I was confident in one of the things being that I had all this pedigree from solar sales that I was like, now I could call it this because that's what it is in this industry. So my confidence did come from there, having that, but also through course careers. I was really confident in the material that they taught, what I learned there in regards to ICP, BP. Like they really do go through a lot of different things and make sure that you have a good understanding. Now, in regards to the actual hands-on training that you'll do, thankfully that most companies do try to provide that to you and understanding their product and things like that. But my confidence really came from course careers and my prior experience and being confident in who I was, being able to convey and tell a story, and introduce pauses and bring the listener in. Those are the things that I was confident in going into the interview process with. And we can elaborate on that, but that's just on a high level.
Yeah, very helpful. And CourseCareers is such a great curriculum. And I know Trent, I know Troy, and they're good people.
Yeah.
So what aspects of CourseCareers stood out most to you? You mentioned learning about like a sales methodology, defining ideal customer profile, the ICP, and things of that nature. Was that like learning how to do the job, and putting the language principles you already knew, the most impactful thing, or were there other components?
I think for me personally, the most impactful thing was when we deep dive into Spin Selling by Neil Rackman, because that really provided a framework of how you want to go about talking or asking questions, right? Because it's very easy to feature dump and just be like, this is what we do. We do da 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 da. You want to book a meeting with us? And they're like, no. But when you could kind of say, hey, for example, and this is what I was going to do later, but I can do it right now. Like, hey, this is what I learned from CourseCareers. Like, hey, I'm just calling here from X, Y, and Z place. I'm looking for this person, and I just want to make sure I'm finding the right person. Lost in the City, Kevin Dorsey. Thank you so much. And then basically, oh well, the reason why I'm calling is for X, Y, and Z purpose. We do da. But let me find a little bit more if this is a good fit. I don't want to. Of course, I'm apologizing for running in on your time here. Do you have? Can you tell me about X, Y, and Z? And then asking these open-ended discovery questions that really that part of spin selling was really helpful in helping me unlock a lot of my discovery skills.
Yeah, great point. Like you were low key at a comfortable tone, putting someone at ease. You're respectful of their time, and also you can ask questions, understand if I'm selling cost savings, if that's even a priority for them, or if that's something they oversee. What if you're talking to the wrong person? They could bop you over to the right person. I love that approach, and maybe we'll dig a little more into that execution aspect of outbounding and cold calling. But I wanted to wrangle back into now the just the job hunt itself and getting your foot in the door. There are a lot of aspects to the journey and what I call the interview sales cycle or the job hunt sales cycles with different companies. And it starts with assets like telling your story on resume and LinkedIn, networking. Obviously, interviewing is a huge thing. What parts of your journey did you focus on, like made the biggest difference? Like, was it focusing, for example, I hear some people say networking so important, or just really becoming an expert interviewer? And some might say that, oh, the resume and LinkedIn, like you want them to be good, but like check the box. It's not as important as the other pieces. But what, aside from CourseCareers and everything, what were impactful areas that you focused on?
Yeah, I really focused on how I'm going to stand out to these companies. And specifically, what I did was I sent a cold email to the associate recruiter. I did some research, use hunter.io, use other available sources to me. I didn't use Apollo at that time, but I used hunter.io, I used LinkedIn, and I was able to get the email. And I was able to email them and email that associate recruiter and say, hey, I'm the Esther you're looking for. Listed out basically what I would bring to the table, listed out what the company does and how I would basically have transferable skills, being a former patient. What was I? I forgot what I was, but I was working at a health tech company prior to, so that was transferable skills there. And so I was a patient coordinator, there we go. And so I was able to leverage all those different things in that cold email. And that was what helped me expedite the process in regards to being an SDR at that company because I showed the initiative.
When it comes to interviewing, what are some of your top tips? And it could have to do with preparation. We know that's key, or even executing in interviews themselves, like any standout tips.
Yeah, you might have heard this before, but the STAR method was really helpful to me, even though I probably didn't call it that at that particular time. But again, going in hindsight, being 2020, I was like, oh yeah, STAR was great here. Situation, task, action, and then the result of that. And so I was able to give a lot of stories, especially my solar days, that kind of revolved around that STAR method, and that helped me be concise because, like you can tell today, I could talk a lot. And so salespeople in general, we could talk a lot. So
It's good
that's
we
what I
get paid to talk.
yeah, versus not getting paid to talk, which is just life, I guess. But yeah, so that's what I would say really kind of helped me being concise, being that curious portion. And again, we're going back to
Yeah.
the three C's, asking one questions on a 1-to-1 ratio. So let's say that, or if it's not a time where I don't get a chance to do that 1-to-1 ratio, at least keep in my mind that saying, hey, you talked about X, Y, and Z. I'm interested in that. Or you've been in the company for a long time. How do you enjoy the culture here? And realize that it's that confidence in understanding, like, hey, I'm a prize too. Yes, I want to work for this company, but they want me as well. And that is what I kind of helped me to kind of go through the process. Bring humor. I love bringing humor to conversations.
Mm.
That's who I am. So I say, if somebody says, how was your day? I'll be like, hey, it was great. I got 2 hours of sleep. How about yourself? Something to really kind of be a little bit more than the mundane. I'm fine, and
Yeah.
just very static.
Yeah, you really have to bring your personality to the table. Now, it's not an excuse
Mhm.
to be unprofessional, but
Yeah.
bring humor and lightness is really important. And these people are busy and stressed out trying to do their own job. So if you can bring a touch of positivity, that's actually a gift. And you're a
Who
good
does not want to work with
storyteller.
a positive? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, go. Sure. Yeah, yeah. I was just going to jump into. You're also a good storyteller. You told a great story. Your kid being born, and that was just like really well told, and you had me on the edge of my seat. And so I imagine, and I mean, I know for a fact storytelling matters in interviews. So, did you spend time like really preparing an arsenal of stories for different behavioral questions, or like how much work did you put into preparing your stories?
That's a great question. Because I got to be honest. I didn't take as much time as some may think, because I believe that if you have these stories at hand and the framework is there, yes, some people may need to take time to go through that again and again. But if you own the story and if you own your life, then it's going to come out. I would just say, just keeping in mind that STAR method helps it to be concise
Yeah.
versus you're now doing a sonnet.
Yeah, in my one of my interviews with for my role at Google Cloud with Blake Horowitz, who's a great guy. I don't know if he's still there. He might be. Um, I was so passionate, but he did have to wrangle me in. He's like, Chris, like we gotta. And so the good news is, if you're super passionate and intentional, and it can outshine any imperfections of being all over the place. But the reality is, you're right, and I have to work on it myself, is preparing crisp answers, but ultimately trusting your gut with your stories, and those are yours to own and deliver. So what were your interview rounds? Like, what was the overall process?
Yeah, I would say it was about, so there was the video screening, then the phone screening. Then I had one round of interviews where I met with two different sales development managers. One of them, I was pitching the product. I was doing discovery call for the particular product that we have at Frisia. And then the other one was sell me something. And I said, oh, well, we're on Zoom right now. Have you ever, I sold Zoom because I
Yeah.
thought it was clever since it was right there. We both were using it. Next was a round where I met with two additional. One was a director and on a director level, and the other one was another sales development manager. And the consensus was, let's go forward with Joseph. He seems cool.
So when they asked you to sell you something, that's a fun one. And I think of sell me this pen, and it could be Zoom or anything. How do you think about coming up with a pitch on really anything? What's your framework?
Yeah, so honestly, that was definitely something that is in the moment you think you're prepared for it, but sometimes if you're not prepared, it could throw you off guard. So I said that's a great question. And I just looked at the computer. I said, well, have you ever heard of a product called Zoom? And they started laughing. And I said, well, we just came through the pandemic. When was the time that you've actually, you had to just use a phone? And of course they played along, but I was able to ask them discovery questions in regards to the last time you've been on the phone. How do you enjoy that process? Do you miss seeing your family and loved ones? If you could see your family and loved ones right now through a technology that has never been seen before, playing along,
Yeah, yeah.
how would that make you feel in your corazón, in your heart?
I love
And
that.
then and they're like, oh, all right, you got it. It's
So
okay.
I love that you brought playfulness to it, and you don't have to be perfect when you get
No.
a tough question like that. It's more just to show like how you operate, your way of being, and
Yeah.
that you have a thoughtful approach. And I love that you, at the end of the day, you're curious and you're asking questions. You're not assuming. That's just the main mistake, is you just jump into a pitch without having any context on the customer's need, or the prospect in this case, on their needs. And one thing I heard from the Wolf of Wall Street himself, Jordan Belfort, when he was talking about sell me this pen, is it's actually a victory to disqualify someone. If what if they don't need a pen? So you actually just, you're kind of unattached, detached, like get to the root of if they have a need or not. And maybe you could create a need, but it's helpful to dig into an example of a question you were asked, and how you approached it. Were there any other like really challenging aspects of the process that stood out to you is like hard?
Yeah, I think the most challenging thing was it was my first discovery call officially. So I realized that in my initial presentation for that first round of interviews that I kind of went more on a presentation style versus like really kind of getting those discovery questions.
Yeah.
But I believe it kind of shown through that, like you said, you don't have to be perfect, but if you could show some of the skill sets that you have, it really does shine. And then this also happens in multiple interviews where you might be given instructions to do something, but it's communicated in weird ways to kind of throw you off to see how coachable you are. I would say to really kind of be open to the moment and be like, hey, uh, I know you told me to do X, Y, and Z. This was not clear. I tried my best. This is what I thought it was. And then if they give you the feedback, be like, oh, great. Thank you so much. Thank them for the feedback. And that happened. And that could have been a moment that could have broken me where I'd be like, oh man, you wrote this and it didn't make sense. Even though that's not my personality. Some people might have that personality where they're like, listen, this didn't make any sense. You're trying to set me up to fail. Well, no, it is a test to see if you're coachable. And are you coachable? How do you respond when you are met with a situation that doesn't go your way? So
yes, that is a golden nugget right there, because that's at the root of most of what these hiring managers are looking for. Are you coachable? Because someone who can humble themselves, put their ego aside, and take in feedback to adapt and improve has limitless potential. And in the SDR role, it's just a beautiful opportunity to get your foot in the door at a great company and then work your way up in sales, or even there's flexibility to pivot into other business units like HR. And even I've seen SDRs when I was at Oracle go into analyst roles, more technical roles. So it's beautiful that there's an opportunity to lower the barrier to entry. And if you can just simply be coachable and open, then you can go a long way, and hiring managers appreciate that. So one of my takeaways and our takeaways is that just pay attention just to moments when you might be challenged, and consider that's an opportunity to show that you're coachable.
Agreed.
All right. So what to talk about next? I think that, we've got some time. We're going to talk about performing in the SDR role, but any thoughts on, before we get there, negotiating an offer, or just like closing out, like and sealing the deal once you made it through the process? Like any look under the hood on even if it's just your experience,
Yeah, my experience was there's no negotiation right now. This is what it is, and those might happen, depending on where you are in your career. An SDR position as an entry level position, I would say that once you have taken time to get where you want to go, let's say this is your first entry level position, after you've kind of taken some time to, as a guy needs, people say, bury your chafe in regards to spending time there and growing and learning, then there's always ways that you can shine and negotiate things on the back end. And I'll wait though for you to kind of dive into the other stuff, but I'll just say that for now.
Yeah, I think that's good. And you know what? When I went to Georgetown University, a top university, so I was fortunate, and Oracle comes to recruit from Georgetown and other companies. But the thing is, I didn't negotiate. I took what I got, and I got a 45K base, which is actually like on the lower end, and then I hit my number, maybe 70-ish K in the first role. And then you get promoted to AE, inside closer, and 6 figures happens, and you're like, damn. So it's not about first of all, the highest starting pay at all. It's more about finding the right boat to row in. And second of all, I didn't negotiate. Now, if you're really savvy, like you're a beast, you could maybe line up a couple offers at the same time.
Yeah.
But that's more like, I feel like when you're further in your tech career and you've proven yourself a little bit, you get to that point. But I'm very impressed if someone is like literally starting out in the entry level role, breaking into tech for the first time, and they've lined up multiple offers. I've seen it, but anyway, so I agree with you. You typically just take what you can get and then crush it, and then go from there. And we're going to talk about crushing quote in a second, but anything you want to riff on that point?
Yeah, I think people need to be patient. I think we live in a microwave society, and I'm guilty of this as well, especially when you hear about this industry that's paying people so well to do these certain jobs. I think it's important to pace yourself and understand that, first of all, can you even do the job? Do you even like the job? You might get in here and you're like, wait a second, this is not for me. I know sales is for me. I love sales. but that's not the case for everyone. And so to just be patient, because you're going to find your way. It may not be here. It might be in customer success. It might be in another portion of tech. It might be better as a PM. Like you really got to find your niche. No pun intended. Your
Yeah.
tech niche. But you really
We
got to
got tech
find
niche
it.
tips, baby. Check out the podcast on the YouTube. It's great. Smash that
Find your
subscribe.
find your home in tech with these tips, right?
Yeah.
But no, but you really got to find that space, and then from there you'll soar.
Yeah. Cheers to more people soaring. And we're going to talk about soaring in a second, but Jesus Enriquez asked a question, and I'll take a stab at it, and you can too, Joseph. There's no right or wrong answer, but it's an interesting question. I didn't expect it. Will there be a hiring surge for BDRs, SDRs in 2024, or will it slow down? I am no oracle. I can't predict the future. I was at a company offsite in Las Vegas recently and just got back. And our sales director did say that, I mean, the economy has declined and it still is actually on a decline trajectory. It's just the nature of the world, you know, like things go up, ebb and flow in the economy, and booms will come. And so I did notice that most recently in our offsite, the economy is just, it's kind of on it's not completely screwed, but it's on a negative decline. And so just looking at macro factors, I don't know that there's going to necessarily be a surge, but it's, you kind of mine the gems or find, if you're sharp and you look at the market, there's some companies that will boom, like Zoom. Zoom boomed in the pandemic. I was at Google Cloud and my companies were going out of business, bleeding cash. These were startups that I was selling to mostly. And it was miserable, but there were companies like Zoom that literally, imagine being a seller there. So you have to take ownership, and we have to do this in sales. And I think sales is the path to entrepreneurship, to navigate the waters and see where are the diamonds in the rough. And that's on us to figure it out. And so what do you think, Joseph?
I totally agree. I would have to piggyback on that, because like you said, there's certain companies that they had like their biggest years during the pandemic, and most people would be like, really? Because there's opportunity in the chaos.
Yeah.
There are presence within the problems that we face. And so
Amen.
if you see a problem that's kind of brewing at this particular time, and you're like, I wonder what company is solving that problem that is happening in the economy, that's your surge right there. You just found your surge protector, right? You just found your own sort of gift. But like Chris said, that comes through your own research, that comes through your own prospecting as well. Because remember, I'm just thinking as an SDR, you're an SDR, you're in sales, you're going to have to do your research in these companies. You have to get yourself connected to the people that are in the position you want to be in, if they're SDR, BDR, etc., or the people that are hiring for the position you want to be in, and really kind of nurture those relationships, really kind of talk to them, get to understand a little bit of the culture, and say, you know what, we've been talking for a while. I can't imagine that you could imagine not having me in your company. Let's have a conversation. I'm joking, but don't say exactly that. But but you're like, I would love to find out a little bit more about what it is that how I could be a part of what you're doing. I think it's great. I did research. I actually spoke to X, Y, and Z. I have an understanding of the KPIs here. I have an understanding of the type of ICP that you have, who your BPs are. I would love to kind of have a conversation about this further. And if they're SDR, you can find out, hey, is there a referral bonus if you refer somebody to your company right now? And then they're like, you know what? There might be. So that I would probably say, yeah, look at the different ways you can navigate this market. This is a market for the savvy, not necessarily for the masses.
Yeah. And sales is just a training ground in my mind for entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurs know that, you know, with high risk comes high reward, and that the price of freedom is uncertainty. But we have an ability to go into the uncertain waters and navigate and find really smart people in your life, or reach out on LinkedIn and you know, maybe find a thought leader and send them a message and ask them a question, and they might get back to you. But what are they saying? And take the time to just, research. It's amazing. We live in a world with Google, like bringing so much of the world's information together on a silver platter.
Yeah.
And, you know, I do think high level, like cybersecurity is not going away. No company will ever be able to afford a breach. It just destroys their reputation. It's extremely expensive. It can destroy a business. So in large enterprises, the companies that aren't even are going to make it through a pandemic or a downturn of any kind that are going to be around. They're going to need security. So what are the technologies that large enterprises are going to need to invest in no matter what that are critical to businesses? Like they reduce risks like security, or cost savings is a big one. In a downturn, companies are looking to get more efficient with and do more with less. And that's why where I'm at, and I don't know if we talked about this, Joseph, but I went from Google Cloud to a cloud consultant that now helps companies save money on Google Cloud. So you're using Google Cloud, we can help you find ways to save, or you can use our engineers to at a fractional cost of full-time employees to help deliver projects, saving money, helping companies be more efficient. For my company, our CEO just said this is a downturns are opportunities. So and you know, that's why I'm kind of happy with where I'm at. But so you look through this lens, and I think more with less is a key thing. And so it's on you to do the homework, and we can go on and on. So, so, and by the way, thank you to everyone who showed up. We have a great audience today, Joseph. You pull a crowd, and we got some great engagement and questions.
Awesome.
We got a question. When reaching out to recruiters, hiring managers, is it better to cold call or cold email or both? You take a stab, I'll take a stab. Let's answer this together.
Yeah, for me, I would say a full sales cadence, as much as you can do, right, to get that ball rolling. High five on that one, because I actually coached someone. I won't say their name, but I'm so proud of him. High school graduate, just graduated. He has an entrepreneur mindset, and he is tenacious. I would love for you to meet him. But he really was like, I just met him at a tech event, and I'm like, I want to talk with you more. And I said, I want to be your mentor, man, because I really believe in you. And he basically did what I said. I said, hey, there's a couple ways you could approach this, right? The market is hard. You're actually putting yourself against people that have more experience than you, honestly, but you are moldable. You're fresh meat, right, for a hiring manager. And so what I want you to do is I want you to cold email. And then what you're going to also do is you're going to reach out on LinkedIn with a connect saying, hey, my name is blah, 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 blah. I just sent you an email, a follow-up email. And if you want to get really that good you want to really make an impression, make in that email a 45-second video introducing yourself, who you are, probably 30 seconds, introducing yourself, who you are, why you'd be a good fit for this company, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this was Monday. I said, tell me about by Thursday if you got a bite. And he told me yesterday that he got a job interview. And so I was like, look at that, So doing this, and then also he had plans to follow up with a cold call, follow up with an email. Like we went through the whole sales cadence and said, hey, work this thing out until they get to you, because if they can see the persistency that you have, they're like, okay, this guy has what it takes to do the job because he's doing it already.
Yeah. If you decide you want to be an SDR in tech sales, what people don't realize is you've already become an SDR, and you're the product. The target companies, or your target employers, or your target companies. Hiring managers, the decision maker. You've got other influencers, your future teammates like the SDR and AE who can refer you and champion you. The recruiter, your process in the interview. Excuse me, your partner in the interview process. and it's amazing if you can just, like you said, a multi-threaded, multi-pronged cadence. Use email, use LinkedIn. I like to use, and I think you kind of alluded to this, but a personal note on LinkedIn alluding to the email. You're pointing them back to the email as that core communication. And the email is personalized. It's crisp. I love the idea of a video pitch. Like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. That's different. Other people aren't doing it. And then the secret weapon is the cold call. The higher the risk, the higher reward. And when making these cold calls, don't think what could go wrong. What could go wrong is so negligible. You're just where you started out. But what could go right is that you influence a VP, a hiring manager. And when it comes from a VP and hiring manager, they say, this Joseph guy, he's got chutzpah. He's actually passionate. Let's interview him. A recruiter who was unresponsive will suddenly become responsive. And it's like, one of our themes, or at least I'm projecting this as a theme to me, is you don't have to be perfect. Just like an interview, like you ramble a little bit, but you, like right here, you ramble a little bit, but you're passionate and prepared. That can make up for it. It's the same with a cold call. If you cold call a VP and you show passion, and that guts in and of itself is more important than whether you're nervous. Like, so what if you stumble a little bit, And so anyways, it gets me amped up, because the more the risk, the greater the upside.
May I add something to that? Because I love what you said earlier, that once you decide to become an SDR, you are already an SDR. And I know this might rub people the wrong way. Hopefully it doesn't. That's not my intention. But if you do have aspiring SDR in your headline, I would encourage you to remove aspiring. I would just encourage you that if you are in this position where you're trying to get there, think of yourself as an SDR. Because if you really start to think of yourself as an SDR, if you start to prospect to these companies as if you are an SDR, putting them through a full sales cadence, hitting them with multiple touches, when you get ready to start the job, you're like, oh, I actually been practicing and I didn't realize that I was practicing.
Exactly right. And when I think of cold calling you as a hiring manager, I'd be like, hey, Joseph, this is Chris. I know I'm completely interrupting your day and calling you out of the blue, but I really want to work for XYZ company as an SDR. Do you have 15 seconds for me to tell you why I want to work for you and why I'm going to be a good fit? And then you can decide if you want to get me in the interview process or not. And it's like, I don't know, there's no perfect script. That's just something I like the permission based. And if anything, show passion. Like, I really want to work for you. And I'm going to tell you like why I show intention, why I want to work for you, which hiring managers want to see, and why I'm a good fit. I think they're going to hear you out. And then if you can talk to like, maybe it's the 3 C's that Joseph mentioned, or I think of at least showing like coachability, passion, and a willingness to pick up the phone. Those could be your 3 reasons, right? And then again, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out, but that's something I've been thinking about lately, Joseph. If I could go back in time and I was trying to like just make it happen, that's how I might think about a cold call to a exec or hiring manager.
Yeah, I would definitely, like you said, when it comes to the cold call, I really do like the lost in the city approach because it kind of, especially if you're working for an organization, it's like helps you find out who the right person is. But in that case, when it's a cold call, I'll be like, I would do, I kind of can, I don't know if this is a cardinal sin, but I do ask how you're doing.
I know. I think that's good. I just interviewed Trent Dressel, and he does that himself. And it's just, there is beauty in simplicity. Like, so tell me what your thinking is behind that. Cause there's a lot of ways to do a cold call, and there's, we just got to ultimately take on the approach that works best for us. So why do you like that approach?
So I like to switch it up a little bit. I like to switch up little details in certain parts of the cold call. So for me, I would say, hi, Joe. I'll say like, hi, Chris, how you feeling? And they'll be like, oh, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling all right. Yeah, okay. I'm like, oh man, I'm feeling splendid, especially because we moved our toddler to their own toddler bed. It's been fantastic. I don't know if you have kids. Do you have kids by any chance? And they're like, no, but I have nieces or nephews. I'll be like, yes, I have kids. Let's talk about this for a minute. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I did not, I almost forgot why I was calling you. I'm calling you. My name is Joseph, and I actually was researching your company, and I'm an SDR, and I know you're looking for SDRs. I think we would be a good fit, but listen, I don't want to assume. I just want to ask you a couple of questions. Do you happen to have time? Go into that permission base. I don't know if you have time. If it works, great. But if the glove don't fit, you must have quit. So I'll allude to something in pop culture where it's like, if I can't moonwalk, I ain't gonna be Michael Jackson, right? Yeah,
go ahead, finish up. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I like what you guys said. Like, using your personality is so important because I think we get so scared to be ourselves. They want to know who they're going to be working with in the long run. So if you could tie some of that in while still being professional, while still being concise and still being focused in your ask and where you're going, I think it could work. But yeah, go ahead. What you're going to say. I think
and just going off that, customers want to work with, candidly, like cool people that they can enjoy being around. Because if you sell a monster deal, by the way, to a customer, like you're gonna, like in my case, I need to continue to nurture that relationship. It's actually just the beginning, and there's ongoing support, there's upsells, especially in big enterprise sales organizations when you're selling a big time like platform or services. And people want to hire people that they just enjoy as a person beyond just being a sales robot. I was just talking to a hiring manager that's a friend of mine at TikTok, and maybe not your typical tech sales role, but they do sell to businesses as well. And she said that. She's like, I want to know about your personal interests of yoga, or you have a family. And so I love you threw in your personality. I like that you had a reason for calling. I noticed you're hiring SDRs. Like there is a rhyme and reason to why you're calling. It's relevant. So, okay, we went over time, but I had a feeling it would happen, and I usually check in to confirm, but it's a Friday, and after this, like I said, I'm going to see Trent at a White Elephant party.
Nice.
But I had a couple questions to finish up, and
Sure.
one is from Olaf. Olaf, thanks for showing up. And then we'll address his question, and then finish up with like just some inspiration on crushing quota. I know that's like a full-blown conversation, but we can hit on some points. So Olaf said, what would you say is the best way to build your network as a student, online or by going to conventions and meeting people? We both can take a stab at it, but you're the guest today, Joseph, so feel free.
I'll try to be very focused on my answer here. What I would say is to start to build a platform, whether that's a podcast, whether that's basically a vlog where you're documenting your journey. Start to build some sort of brand for yourself right there on LinkedIn, on other social media platforms, because what that's going to do is kind of, even though you're not necessarily there, you're building a reputation, and eventually you're going to build an authority that when somebody looks at, Olaf, they'll say, oh, Olaf, you are the, I don't know, I'm trying to think of if you have like a sort of like, let's say you want to create like a character where you're like, what's the movie that had Olaf in it? What's that movie?
Oh, like Frozen?
Yeah, so you're like the Frozen of sales. Like I'm just making something off the top of my head, but you could kind of create something for yourself.
Like a persona.
A brand that basically it goes with you. And I've actually heard this before, where there's a person that got hired at a company as, I think, like entry-level position, like an SDR or something like that. But everybody was like, oh my gosh, we got them, because they built a brand for themselves. And so I would first encourage you to do that, so that when you go to these networking events, when you go to these different places, you're presenting yourself as this particular brand, and you're presenting the value that you bring as well. So, like, for example, went to an event recently, and I'm a newbie technically. I've only been there for like a year, but it feels longer. However, when I was in the room with different people that were CEOs and started of different conventions, I could present myself as, hey, I'm Joseph. I'm a senior SDR, but I'm also a podcast host. I have this show. I have this morning show. And now it's like, wait a second, who is this guy? And so that's what you want to do, is build that brand.
That is such a good insight, to build a brand, and it will help you grow through like great conversations like this with awesome people. Build your network, and it is like there's a market credibility. It's a conversation starter. And I've heard networking could be like getting into a company through the back door, and creating a brand is like maybe the side door. It's like another way to create a warm inroad and get into a company. And I will add that I like that you're talking about going to conventions and meeting people. Connecting in person is a great opportunity. So always be open to just like getting out there, networking and meeting people. You never know if like you're just in some random bar and all of a sudden the person next to you is a VP of sales at a top company. And recently I put a video out on a perfect elevator pitch, which, by the way, there's no perfect elevator pitch, but for marketing, it's helpful. And I told a story about sitting next to a guy at a bar, and it turns out he's a VP at like the fastest growing healthcare company in the like a radiology company in the country, and it opened up a $40 million opportunity. I'm still chasing it. These deals take a long time. It could take 2 years. And but the thing is, it started with sitting next to someone at a bar. And so just getting out there and having a little bit of a pitch on, not just when you're in the job, but on yourself and your vision. And partly just sharing your vision with people, like, will give them the opportunity to step up and help. So just being vocal. You never know who you're going to meet. So, and back to, I just think like Joseph's 3 C's are really powerful. If you're confident and you have some self-esteem, then these people are going to believe in you. And if you're curious and you ask great questions when you're networking, that's like one of the secrets to being the most interesting person, is just being curious about them, and then consistency in terms of following through and following up, and just over time, like, maybe getting a handful of coffees over the course of a few months if they're in person, or having a conversation on the phone, sending messages and sharing people's posts. That's a way to bring value, commenting thoughtful comments, not just like, oh, I love that, but like, this article you shared was great. I love this specifically. So anyways, you want to riff on that at all, Joseph?
You nailed it. I was like, you brought the seeds back and everything. Like everything you said, that was that was it.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I myself feel inspired. You know, there's so much I've learned from you today, and
Oh, thank you.
we went over, but we got to deliver on what was promised, and we already hit on it. But wrap up with like how to crush quota. You know, we ended up crushing the interviews and networking and getting a job, and now we're in the role. What are the KPIs going to look like, and what are a couple top tips to lay a foundation to actually crush those KPIs?
Yeah, so I'll hit it quickly. My KPI is 40 calls a day, 20 emails a day, or which should be 100 a week. It's about 6 voicemails. And the way I learned to do it, I didn't get this right away, but you really want to be strategic. You have about 100 or so accounts or more, depending if you're just getting started. You want to just take about 10, 15 of them. And you're going to research these accounts. You're going to probably put them in tasks if you're using Salesforce. And you're going to call, email, and set up a sales cadence for that remainder of the week. If you have opportunity to use Sales Navigator, you're going to use that as well to get insight. Like, for example, I called somebody and said, hey, I feel sorry for you. I apologize that the Boston Celtics lost yesterday to the Indiana Pacers, but my heart goes with you. And just kind of find a way to personalize those emails based off the information that you can find. And so that's what I would say to do it. What made me hit quota consistently, I think, was in the follow-up and being coachable. So basically, I would send as soon as I book, I would send out an invite, even though I didn't have necessarily all the rep or all the information ready to go, because I have to get pull some more information, send an invite, again, alluding to the expectations that were set during the call. Setting expectations is so important. And then also sending them an email with the same information, so that way, and they have that. And keep in touch. Between about a day before I would do it, call them again, update the invite if it wasn't updated already with some more information, reminding them that, this is the importance of the importance of this first meeting, and so on and so forth, so that when they get there, they have an expectation and they are considered a qualified lead because they stayed throughout the entire demo, or in this case for us, an overview.
Yeah, it's helpful to hear the nuances in which you engage, what it takes, like the little details add up, conscientiousness, and ultimately being consistent and following up is so powerful. It's so important. Like follow-ups fuel the finances, whether it's just landing a job in sales, you're following up with networking contacts, or the recruiter in your interview process, or landing whale clients. And it's interesting how sales teaches us over time that success is very simple. It's the persistence, it's taking action, it's having courage to pick up the phone. But it's not necessarily easy. But the great news is it is simple. And if we are willing to put in the work and choose a good attitude and learn from people like yourself, who are mentors, further down the path, like we could do some big things. The upside is monstrous. So any other, words of inspiration or encouragement as we wrap up? And after that, we'll talk about technique as a call to action, because I want people to check that out. But any other, like inspiration?
Get a mentor and listen to what they say and do what they say, especially if they have success where you want to go.
Mic drop. It is, we talked about at least I did, success being simple, and it's that simple. And it's funny you say that, because before this, I was scrambling to get back because I was with my mentor, Dean Zarilla. He's in my tech sales wrap, tech sales bussin' or whatever. A 3-time CEO that started in tech sales, who's selling ERP and NetSuite, and now he's a 3-time CEO. And I went to him for mentorship. And it's like, it's just good to have people like him, folks like you, who are down the path of where you want to go, that can show you the way to expedite your success and encourage you along the way. So I love your heart to encourage people. I know you've got this tech sales niche.
I'm so sorry. One more thing.
Go ahead, and then we'll wrap up.
I apologize to cut you off, because we talk about mentors. Some people might be like, where do I go get a mentor? I got to shout out two organizations. SCORE. I don't know if you've ever heard of SCORE before, but they basically they pair people if you want to be a mentor. It's SCORE, I believe. It's organization, score.org, I think, where you could be paired to mentors there, people that have, wealth of knowledge. And then there's also this, I believe it's an app now, Peabody, I believe it is, where you can literally create your board of directors from this app. For board of directors of your life, like somebody that's a board of director of your finances, somebody's a board of director of this aspect of your life, so that you're having guidance on all levels. Just want to throw that out there real quickly to your audience.
I love that metaphor of board of directors. And I was just talking to someone how you can make Chat GPT your board of directors, which I'd rather get some actual real world mentors. But
Yeah.
and it's funny because it's just good to look at life through metaphors like that. And I also think one metaphor, a little tangent, is that a company is like a venture capital firm investing in the Joseph Smith enterprises as you pursue your dreams, like any tech sales company you're working for. And so, you find your VC, the company, to fund your dreams. And obviously you're giving back and contributing and making the most of the opportunity, and find your board of directors that can advise you across different dimensions of life. And hey, maybe Joseph will be one of yours. Maybe I'll be one of yours. Guys, as a call to action, make sure to connect with Joseph on LinkedIn and follow him. And don't be afraid to book some time for coaching with him. Don't you provide coaching?
Yeah, I do. I do free group coaching on Thursdays, and I also do one-on-one coaching as well.
Okay, cool. So definitely take advantage of that opportunity and check out Tech Niche Tips. It's a great podcast. And any final thoughts on and what people can expect and what you love about Tech Niche Tips?
Well, before I go, thank you again for this opportunity.
Yeah.
You have been a mentor to me. I talked to you about some things offline, and you were able to really help me with that. So thank you again. Anything I would say is just tune in with us. We have a morning show. I have a morning show with also Tech Back Trey on Monday mornings called Talk That Tech, the morning show,
Ooh.
the #1 tech talk morning show in the world, because it's the only one I know of. But yeah.
Good for you. First mover advantage.
First in the market, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that. So definitely check in with that. And also I have a live showing tomorrow with Anthony Mays. He's a career coach. And so we're going to dive into why you should have a career coach as well.
Yeah, guys, check that out tomorrow morning. And we got some comments. Joseph needs to start a newsletter as well. I'm sure it'll happen in time.
Yeah, I do.
Isn't it something to balance out the 9 to 5 and a great work opportunity with also the brand? And it's just a beautiful struggle to be able to deal with. And I just sounds so funny to say, but I love what you're doing, man. I'm in your corner. Thanks for being in other people's corners too, including mine. And guys, thank you for showing up to your success in tech sales and in life. Happy selling and happy living. And we will see you in the next one. All right.